welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Sabina Fenn. I am a full-time artist and illustrator based in Toronto. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my story as an artist, how I became an illustrator, how I went full-time, kind of my background, and yeah, I wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I live on a very busy street at the moment. We'll be moving soon, but right now there's a lot of noise outside. There's a lot of cars going by, so if you hear any background noise, I apologize in advance. And the second thing is that I will be structuring this video as more of an interview with questions that I tend to get quite often. And the reason for doing that is just to make sure that I don't go off on a tangent and make this video like 2 hours long. You'll see the question at the bottom of the screen, and I'll be just kind of talking about these different areas of my life and how I got to where I am now. I hope you enjoy. Asked the question if I was always creative or if art is something that I learned, and there's two sides to this question. I've definitely always been more of a creative person. I think I'm just very visual by nature. If you ask me to do anything math related, I am completely useless. And I'm sure that part of that is just that I was always really drawn to art, and I never felt like I was good at other topics, so I didn't probably put as much effort into them as I could have. I have kind of had the advantage of working on my artwork since I was very young. So when I was a little kid, I was crafting, I was doing paper mache. I remember coming home from school and just getting into my crafts again and drawing and following the latest Art Attack on TV. If you're familiar with that show, that was my favorite. But I would say anyone can be an artist. The way that I paint now is just thanks to hours upon hours upon hours of practice and painting every single day. And even when I was starting out with illustration, I could barely draw. I think you can have the sort of the genes to be better at something, but I think anything you work at is something that you'll just get better with over time. And any artist you see that is very talented and, is kind of making a name for themselves is really someone who's definitely worked on their craft for hours and hours. So I hope that's kind of encouraging in a way. I know a lot of people kind of get down on themselves thinking that because they don't have an art background, they won't be a good artist, but that's just not true. You can definitely start anytime, any day, any age. I also often get asked if I went to art school. And the answer is no. I was actually discouraged to go to art school by teachers, but I don't have any regrets because I actually ended up in fashion school where we learned about fashion illustration. In learning that, it kind of directed me to illustration, to that whole industry. So I'm very grateful for my path that I took, regardless of whether, that's the one I would take now. I think I learned a lot in my program. It was called Fashion Communications, and it was at Ryerson in Toronto. We learned a lot about different subjects, whether it was marketing or business or graphic design and illustration. So I feel like a lot of skills that I have now, I maybe wouldn't have learned. I'm glad that I took that path. So there was obviously a lot of work that went into it, but also a little bit of luck that kind of secured my place, I think, within the industry. And obviously it's something I keep working at every day, plugging away at these things that I mentioned, like Etsy and Pinterest. And, I'm constantly, it's like when you're working online, you really have to keep up with what's going on. And there were some events that led up to me becoming full-time, which were mostly like meeting people in person and getting those in-person connections, which kind of got me my first jobs, and then that would lead to the second jobs, and then it kind of like, it's like a snowflake effect, I think they call it, or a ripple effect. That's how I became full-time. I wanted to also take a minute to talk about struggles that I've faced as an artist, and this is mostly because I know that when you see us artists online, you might kind of assume the best, and we show like our highlights and how we do things, and it can I think seem like we've got it all kind of put together, and I guess that's like everyone online these days, like it's a highlight reel. But I wanted to mention a few struggles that I faced over the years, because I've definitely had my fair share of them, and getting to where I am now was not a piece of cake. Like, it was really hard. It can seem like everything kind of happened overnight, but it really didn't. Like, it took a long time to get to where I am now. I think this is actually like why I wanted to start my YouTube channel in the first place too, to encourage other artists, because when I was in high school, even in university and before then, I was constantly fed this message that like artists are starving and you only make money after you die as an artist, and there's no room in the world for more artists, and like all these negative things were just like clouding my mind to the point where I was like, okay, I know I love art, but I have to throw that out of the window. Like, that's not a realistic path at all. Like, I can't make a living out of that, so I'm gonna have to find a career that is creative and fun, and I can do that 9 to 5, and then I'll like do my art on the side. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think that's great. If you know, that kind of also like takes the pressure off of making art, which I think is a whole other topic I could talk about. I remember very specifically like situations in my life where people kind of looked at me face to face and just said, no, there's no way. And it's like the kind of feeling when your stomach drops, like when someone gives you bad news or something. It's just really hard, I think, when you're starting out to push through that noise. I personally had people very close to me kind of question everything I was doing when I was just starting out, and that was really, really hard to push through, because they were people that I trusted, still trust. I didn't want to let them down, and I didn't want to be a failure. I don't have too much advice for like pushing through external noise like that, other than just keep going and kind of listen to your own instincts, because people are always going to have something to say. And I think we should know by now with social media and stuff that any career is possible. Like, if someone can be an influencer, I think you can be an artist. Do you know what I mean? Parents and teachers, like, they weren't really familiar with the way that people were sharing art online and getting projects through Instagram and, you know, Pinterest and social platforms. Like, in the old times, people were literally carrying their portfolios on the plane to Europe to like knock on people's door and be like, hi, I'm an artist, can you please hire me to do this project? So yeah, that was a big struggle that I had, a big hurdle I had to kind of overcome. It's definitely something that I still kind of feel time to time today. I feel very confident now as an artist, mostly just from experience, also from, you know, having a good list of clients I've worked with. I feel like I've kind of established my place in the industry a little bit. I think I am especially vulnerable to trusting others over trusting myself in a way. So that was a really hard thing for me to have to go through. The next thing I get asked pretty often is where I find inspiration. And I actually feel like I don't go out looking for inspiration too much. I definitely scroll through Pinterest here and there, like looking for things that spark a kind of feeling or something that I'm like, oh, I want to paint that. But I think in general, I'm very inspired by my own life and what's going on around me and what I'm seeing in person. I especially recently have been kind of painting lots of gardens and spring flowers and plants and animals, and because that's, I think, what I'm seeing a lot of right now. And last winter I was painting quite a bit of like winter scenes and cute Christmas houses, and I don't know, I think I'm just very inspired by the world around me in general, and or I've kind of trained my mind to see the beauty in like really normal things. Like, if I walk by a tree, I'm like, wow, that's a really amazing. I kind of look at things in an extra layer. Like, I'm looking at the colors and the textures and how a flower will have like a contrasting color. I'm thinking of pansies right now, like how they have a really dark center with like a light contour and a yellow spot in the middle. Like, it just, I find nature so interesting on its own. Quickly, I just want to mention, like, it can be hard to trust kind of paint what you want versus what you think people want to see. That's something that I've realized over the years. It's always, most of the time, better to just paint what you want to paint because you'll probably do a much better job. In my own experience, it's never good to paint just for trends, and I'm sure it works, but it's just like, I don't think it'll be work that you'll be super proud of. So that's just something that I've kind of learned and wanted to share. This is the last question that I'll answer, and one that I get a lot is, what mediums do you use? And I use 99% of my work is gouache paint. I love painting with gouache because it's so versatile. I can use it like a watercolor, but then I can also layer it on super thick. I can use it to cover up mistakes, or I can rework it if I need to with some water. It's really good for illustration, but I just find I'm really comfortable with painting with gouache. I dabble with acrylics and stuff from time to time, and in high school I used to paint with a lot of acrylics, but I get kind of impatient and I don't like that the paint dries so quickly, and I just like, I don't want to be remixing colors every time they dry out. I don't know. I want it to be easy. Recently, I've been testing pencil crayons with gouache. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I think it's a great look. If you layer a pencil crayon over gouache, like a layer of gouache, it's really nice. But yeah, it's mostly just gouache and my sketchbook. I don't like paper that has too much of a texture because it's harder to scan. Pretty straightforward. It's nothing too fancy. That's it. That's how kind of my story, I guess. I hope that was interesting. I hope I didn't kind of ramble your head off. I know everyone kind of has their own journey and their own story, and I think that's beautiful, and I don't think you should ever compare your journey as an artist to someone else's because it's completely different. Like everyone's situation is different. I've been very fortunate in many ways, just to name a few. Like, I've had parents that have supported me in the past. I've been like lucky to meet a great mentor in university. I don't know, made good connections with a good agent that I like. Some of these things will fall into place over the years, but you kind of have to just navigate where you are in the moment and not kind of feel like you're always behind. Like, just trust your own path as an artist. I think that's my top advice in general. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions about my art, please feel free to ask below and I will answer them as soon as I can. If there's anything that I haven't addressed here that you're curious about and you'd like to see another video on, please feel free to let me know as well. That's it. I'm gonna go take my dog for a walk now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.